The world felt too heavy for me the day I met them. I had been walking home from another day that blurred into the one before it. The streets were wet from the afternoon rain, and the sky was the color of fading steel. I kept my hands in my pockets and my head low, because when you live most of your life feeling unseen, it becomes easier to hide. That was when I heard laughter. Not the mocking kind that haunted my school hallways for years. Not the polite kind adults force from their mouths. Like air escaping a balloon, this was the kind of laughter that warms your bones without asking permission. I looked up and saw them under the big oak tree near the bus stop. 3 people around my age, sitting on the damp grass, sharing a single umbrella. While the rain misted their hair, they were eating street food straight from the paper wrapping and talking like the world itself was their living room. I wanted to walk past, but my feet betrayed me. I paused just long enough to make eye contact with one of them. Her name was Era, though I didn't know it then. She smiled the kind of smile that doesn't just reach the eyes. It lives there. "Hey, stranger," she said. "You look like you need somewhere to sit." I almost said no, because that's what lonely people do. We convince ourselves we're better off alone before the world can reject us. But something in her voice didn't give me the option. I sat, and for the first time in what felt like years, I was part of something that didn't need an explanation. They asked my name. They asked where I was coming from. They asked if I liked fried dumplings, and before I knew it, they were handing me one warm and dripping with sauce. The rain had soaked through my sleeves and into my shoes, but I didn't care. The air felt lighter here under that oak tree, like the laughter itself was holding up the sky. From that day, the tree became ours. Even when the sun was brutal or the wind tried to tear the world apart, we would find our way back there. Era was the heart of the group. Every plan started with her voice. Every laugh grew louder when she joined in. Then there was Mikhail. He was quiet at first glance, but the kind of quiet that watched and understood everything. He spoke in short sentences that landed like poetry. When he did laugh, it was soft but contagious. And finally Zara. She was the spark that kept the dull parts of the world from swallowing you whole. Her energy could turn a gray sky pink and a silent moment into music. We were misfits in the eyes of the world, pieces that didn't seem to belong anywhere else. But together, we became a puzzle that made sense. We started walking home together after school. Then we started meeting before school, just to sit by the oak tree and watch the morning light filter through the leaves. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months. And the tree became less of a meeting spot and more of a home. We shared secrets there that we never told anyone else. Era told us about her dream of leaving the city one day to see the ocean. Mikhail confessed he wrote songs in his notebook, but never showed them to anyone. Zara admitted she sometimes cried at night because she felt like she was living life too loudly and still not being heard. And I told them I felt invisible, that sometimes I walked through my own house like a ghost and no one noticed. They didn't flinch. They didn't try to fix me or tell me I was wrong for feeling that way. They just listened. Then Era put her hand over mine and said softly, "You're not invisible anymore." The days with them began to stitch my life into something whole again. Every morning felt like a promise, because I knew by the time the sun tilted west, I would be sitting under that oak tree with my friends who had become my world. We began to collect memories like children collecting seashells at a shore, each one different and yet all beautiful in its own way. Mikhail brought his guitar one afternoon. Its wood scratched and worn, but the strings sang like they had been waiting for this moment their entire lives. He played softly as the breeze ran its fingers through the leaves above us, and the golden sunlight painted our faces with warmth. Era hummed along, her voice delicate but steady, and Zara clapped her hands in a rhythm that didn't always match the song, but made it better somehow. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, I felt safe. The world outside could be cruel and unyielding, but here under this tree, surrounded by the 3 souls who had welcomed me without question, I was untouchable. Our talks began to spill into evenings when the street lamps flickered to life and the city hummed like a distant heartbeat. We watched the seasons change. From the same spot the leaves turned gold and fell. Like little pieces of the sun, winter draped the branches in a thin sheet of frost, and our breaths rose like smoke in the dim air. But still we gathered hot chocolate in paper cups, warming our hands in laughter, warming our hearts. Era once said that the tree had magic in it, that it only let people meet under it when they needed each other the most. None of us disagreed. We started leaving little things behind for each other. A note tucked into the roots saying, "I hope today feels lighter." A small sketch of a bird. Zara had drawn a folded page of Mikhail's song lyrics I started to write to. Little stories about the four of us escaping the city to explore mountains or oceans or stars. I never told them, but it felt like speaking the future into existence. Then one spring evening, the world shifted. We were sitting under the tree as usual when Era's phone rang. She stepped away to answer, and when she returned, her smile was gone, replaced with a tremor in her lips that told us before she even spoke, her family was moving to another city. It was for her father's job, and it was happening in less than 2 weeks. Silence clung to us, heavier than any rain ever had. I stared at her, trying to memorize the curve of her face in the fading light, because I realized then how fragile home could be. We spent every remaining day together. Like time was water slipping through our hands. We rode buses to nowhere, just to talk. We stayed in the park until the streetlights buzzed alive, and even then we did not move. Mikhail played his guitar more and more, his melodies trembling with the weight of goodbye. Zara made jokes that cracked at the edges, and we laughed harder than ever, trying to drown out the hurt the night before she left. We met under the tree for one last time. The moonlight turned the world silver, and the air was thick with unshed tears. Era handed each of us an envelope inside. Mine was a Polaroid of the four of us, sitting on the grass, smiling so wide. It hurt on the back. She had written 3 words, "You are home." When the taxi came the next morning, I thought I could hold it together. But as she hugged me, the pieces of my heart I had carefully taped together began to fall. She whispered, "Thank you for seeing me," and then she was gone. The city felt louder that day, and emptier, all at once. Weeks turned to months, and the oak tree stood tall, but it felt different now. Zara still came, sometimes with her sketches. Mikhail still played his guitar, and I still wrote my stories, but a piece of the magic had left with Era. One summer afternoon, as I sat alone under the tree, a familiar voice called my name. I looked up and saw her running across the field, wind in her hair, and that same radiant smile. She had returned for a visit, and for a moment it was as if time had folded back on itself. We spent the entire day together, walking through old streets, sharing ice cream and telling each other all the stories we had saved up. That night, we sat under the oak tree again, and I realized something. Home was never the tree. Home was never the city. Home was the people who saw you when the world looked right past you. Home was the laughter that refused to fade even when distance tried to smother it. Home was them friends who became my home. The days after her visit carried a warmth that refused to leave even when she was gone again. It was as if the memory of that reunion stitched a patch into the hole she had left in our hearts. Zara and Mikhail and I began to visit the oak tree more often, and every time we sat there, I felt her presence like sunlight hidden behind soft clouds. Life kept moving like it always does, and we carried the seasons together. We celebrated Mikhail's small concert at a local cafe where he played the song he had written for us under the oak tree. He called it home because he said no other word captured what we had found in each other. Zara started drawing murals on the walls of the city alleys, little pieces of color that turned gray corners into laughter. I helped her one night painting stars across a blank wall, and for a moment, the world felt as big as our dreams. I wrote more stories than ever, each one a love letter to the friends who saved me without even trying. Some were about our memories exactly as they happened. Others were about us years from now, traveling together or sitting under the same tree as adults, still laughing, still whole. One story imagined Era opening her own little art shop by the ocean where we would all meet one day to watch the sunset. I never told them how much I needed those stories. They were my map for the days that felt empty without her. Then came the letter. It arrived on a windy autumn morning in handwriting I knew by heart. Era wrote about her new life in the other city. She said she missed us in a way that felt like missing a piece of herself, she told me. She read our stories whenever the world felt too big, and she cried and laughed all at once. At the end, she wrote a single sentence that stayed with me no matter where I go: "You are my home." We began writing to each other every week, and sometimes she sent voice messages of her laughter, so we could play them under the oak tree when it felt too quiet. Even though she was miles away, it was like she had never truly left the oak tree. Became our ritual and our reminder. Every year, we celebrated the day we first met, like a secret holiday. We would sit in a circle, eat street food, and share our dreams for the future. Zara wanted to paint the world. Mikhail wanted to write an album. I wanted to create stories that made someone somewhere feel a little less alone. Era wanted to come back to us one day and stay for good. Years passed, and life began to pull us in different directions, but the thread of friendship held. Mikhail left for music school in another city. Zara started traveling to paint murals for festivals. I worked quietly on my writing, hoping to one day turn all our memories into a book. Even when we were apart, the oak tree stayed in our hearts. It had become the symbol of the home we had built in each other. Then one spring morning, I returned to the park alone and saw something that made me stop in my tracks. Era was sitting under the oak tree, her hair longer, her smile exactly the same. She had moved back quietly, planning to surprise us. When Zara and Mikhail arrived, we spent the whole day there like nothing had changed. We laughed until the sun fell and the first stars arrived. We promised that no matter where life took us, we would always return here, because this tree was not just a tree. It was the first place in the world that had felt like home. Years later, when people asked me where I grew up, I never mentioned a house or a street or a neighborhood. I always thought of an oak tree and the three people who made me believe in belonging. I thought of the laughter that healed my bones and the stories we shared under a sky that listened. I thought of my friends who became my home.